All right, so today I want to talk to you guys about making mistakes, right? Because guess what? Mistakes are going to happen. We are human. It's all it is. A lot of people get caught up in, they beat themselves up, they feel bad, they call themselves names and all these things. And that's not helpful for you in the long run. Like, what is calling yourself a piece of shit? What is telling yourself you're a failure? What does all those things do for you? Nothing. It actually ruins your self-conscious. Your self-conscious, your self-confidence. And ruining your self-confidence is not a good thing, because guess what? The more you ruin your self-confidence, the harder it's gonna be for you to adhere to things. And that's why we wanna change that mindset that you have, change that behavior, and instead use your memory what it's meant for. And your memory is actually a learning tool, in case you didn't know that. Like, our memory is there from obviously our ancestral days, but it's there because if there's a lion, right? We've never seen a lion before. We're out walking with our friends, like, oh, what's that thing? And this lion attacks someone and kills them. You now have the memory to know, don't make that mistake again. Don't walk in front of a lion again. That's what our memory is there for. It's not there to remember cool things, which, that's a benefit, but that's not the main thing. It's there to prevent us making mistakes again. It's a learning tool for us. And so when you make a mistake, let's say you overeat at nighttime, you use that as a learning tool. What can you do going forward to prevent that happening again, right? So let's say you overate at night, like I just said, and the next morning, you're like, fuck's sake, I overate. Before you start kicking yourself when you're down, before you start telling yourself you're a piece of shit, before you start doing all those other things, first, re-look at what happened. What caused that outcome to happen? Like, let's refocus on the steps and look at what was the day like? What caused you to start overeating? And then you think about it, you're like, all right, well, yesterday, I was pretty in a rush. I didn't have my meals prepped. I only had a snack during the day. I had a protein shake. I came home and I was ravenous. I ate dinner. I was still hungry, and then I just started overeating. All right, so your lack of preparedness of eating throughout the day is what caused you to overeat. What do you do going forwards? I need to be prepared. I'm gonna put some stuff in the work fridge or the work freezer as a just in case. I'm gonna have some snack like a protein bar, or I'm gonna have some beef jerky in my drawer at work, so that way it never prevents me overeating. And then you make an action plan going forwards. So this is basically reflection and replanning, like reflect on what happened, plan an action step going forwards. And here's the thing, it's probably not gonna fix the problem straight away. It might, but not always, Sometimes it takes 3, 4, 7, 10 times for things to happen, for things to click in your head too. Like, you guys have heard me say so many things before, and it's probably not until the 4th, 5th, 6th, 12th time that you're actually like, oh, I know what Tyson's talking about, or, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. Like, we have shit going on all the time. We always think about something and, we may hear something said in a certain way, and that's when the brain clicks. Or you might have heard the same thing 3 years ago, but for some reason, when you read a book again and something resonates with you differently, it's just that point in time where your brain is ready to receive the message. Don't know why, fucking don't ask me, but that's just shit that happens, And this is a cool thing though, because every time we make a mistake, it's not about beating ourselves up now, it's about how can we get better, how can we improve, how can we prevent, right? And this is a good thing, again, because the more you start to rethink about that, how can I improve, how can I prevent, you're going to get better. But remember, it's not gonna happen in the first time. If you're like, all right, I need to do meal prep beforehand, I need to be able to do that, there's gonna be another time where it happens and you end up overeating again. And if it's the same issue, you're like, fuck, I need to make sure I have things in. Maybe you did have food and stuff in your drawers, but then you ate it all, right? And then you're left empty again, and the same thing happens 3 months down the line. And you're like, I know I should have done this, or I know this happens, I just made the mistake again. That's human. We are human. We all make errors. Perfect example for me, smoking weed, right? I know if I have too much pot, I am going to overeat, all right? I just know that. And sometimes my brain tricks me and says, just have a little bit more. And then guess what happens? I overeat. I still make that same fucking mistake, but I'm getting better at how less frequently that occurs versus how it used to happen all the time. And it's just like, Now it's about catching my brain, because sometimes, again, like our brain can be in an emotional state, or we can just get caught up in our thoughts and fall into an old behavior. And so trying to change a behavior does take time too. So it's a bit of a frustrating thing. But again, you get better at it and you make that mistake less and less over time, which is a good thing. And if you can avoid the mistake again, it will then set you up for long-term success. And so, again, or you say, okay, I've got to do this next time, but then you don't do it. And then you fall back into the bad behavior again. That's okay. Reflect, replan, put it into place, right? Maybe you need to do something easier. Maybe you need to change it a little bit, because sometimes we keep trying to do the same thing and we're not achieving the outcome we want. Again, you're like, I need to put food in my cupboard. I need to be able to do this. But then you have food there, but you just keep forgetting to eat it. Maybe you need to set an alarm on your phone, okay? Maybe you need to tell a coworker to invite you out to lunch so it reminds you to eat. Maybe you need to, when you have an alarm on your phone, have a coworker. I'm trying to think what else, I'm just trying to think on the fly here. Maybe it's having it on your desk so you see the food instead of forgetting it, right? Maybe it's having a snack on the way home. Maybe it's associated with something. So when you go and get a coffee, every time you drink a coffee, you have to have a little bit of food that you've got on your desk. Whatever it can be, there's always going to be different options. And so sometimes, even with that reflection or replanning, the action step going forwards isn't going to be the right action step, and you may have to reflect and replan again. But this is something you'll do for life in all areas, right? When you do a shitty piece of work for something in your job, you reflect on it and you're like, that wasn't my best work. How can I do it better? Like when I explain it in a video, if I don't explain something correctly, I'll re-record a video again, which is why I'm basically talking about everything that I talked about in the past again, because I have a different thought process. I have now progressed as a human. I've gotten better overall. I am having different thoughts. I am learning. I'm developing wisdom. That's a weird thing to say, like as a slightly older person. I'm wiser than I was at 21, And so I can look back at actions I was doing at 21 and be like, oh man, I wish I did this differently. That's just progress at a time. But also in saying that, it's always something you're going to be doing better and better. And you may hear something one day and be like, oh, that's what I need to do in order to prevent X, Y, Z. Oh, that's what I need to do instead of this, right? It's always just things come at a certain time, and sometimes for whatever reason, the dots connect. We can't control when they connect, they just connect. You've definitely heard something said 100 times, and then someone says it the 101st time in a different way, or even the same way, and for some reason, something in your brain just turns on, Like when I've read a book, I've reread heaps of books because I like certain books. I'm like, this is a good book. I don't know what it is about the book being good, it's just a good book. And then I reread it and I'm like, I didn't read this the first time. Of course I read it the first time. My brain was just not ready to accept the information until now. I was underdeveloped, or I was thinking differently. And it's so crazy when you go back and you read a book and you're like, how did I not take this away from a book the first time or the second time? When you go back and re-listen to my podcast, you're going to listen to a podcast or any podcast, you re-listen to that and you'll pick up something different every time. And it just goes to show that our way of thinking, where we are in life, all these things impact the information coming in our head, right? And one day something just goes and clicks and you're like, okay, I never heard that before, or I never thought about it like that. And it's like an epiphany moment. You're like, whoa, like a little bit of a dopamine hit. You're like, fuck, okay, sweet. Now I'm gonna try this. So again, do not beat yourself up when you make mistakes, all right? There's nothing good from fucking kicking someone when they're down. Nothing good at all. There's something very good from constructively criticizing, addressing, making changes, and assessing the situation from a third person perspective, all right? Like the reason coaches are good is because they can look at you objectively. You look at yourself subjectively all the time. You are yourself, you have emotional ties to yourself. A coach is just looking at you as another person and can tell you, oh no, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And you're like, and you've got all these thoughts in your head, nah, but I'm a special snowflake, nah, but I gotta do this, nah, but I gotta do this. You don't really, it's just because you are you. It's very hard for us to take a step back and analyze ourselves, but it's a very good thing to start practicing, because the better you become, the more self-aware you can become, the better it's gonna be. So watch yourself like you're someone else, and you'll realize this because there are things that'll go on in your head. You'll think, I'm gonna be doing this, and then you go and do this. And then you can look back and be like, why the fuck did I do this? And you look at yourself like that. And it's just interesting to even look at how your own behaviors play out, all right? But remember, every lesson or every mistake you make is a learning lesson, not a chance to beat yourself up, okay? So change that perspective. Cool? All right, hope that was helpful. Speak to you guys next time.